So basically, any car which is above the age of 50,
Okay.
with the complete documentation, if you have the RC of the car,
Okay.
and it's on your name, you can get a vintage plate for it, which is a VN number.
Okay.
But still, the law is very ambiguous today as it stands.
Okay.
A lot of my friends and people who are in the scene have got vintage number plates.
Acha.
But still, how would I say it? The notification is not very clear. Ideally, you should be able to drive these cars if you have vintage numbers. But still, the police are not informed about it. On some instances, we've been stopped by the police, even though the car has completely valid papers. It'll have a vintage number plate. It'll have insurance. Its pollution. Everything is in check. But we'll be stopped, and we have been harassed about it very recently. In fact, we were coming back from a morning drive, and one of our uncles, he had basically got his car's documents completely ready, with a vintage number. It was I think a Rajasthan vintage number.
Okay.
And we were stopped. And technically he can drive that car, because that's the purpose of having a VN plate, correct?
Correct.
But then there was a lot of police trouble. A few calls had to be made here and there, and that's when the car was left. Ideally, this should not be happening. Ideally, you should be, if there is a notification which has been sent out, you should be allowed to drive these cars.
Correct.
So what has been understood till now of it is, even if you have a VN number, it can only be driven on, let's say, on a vintage car rally or a drive or a standing show to bring it over there. On any other odd day, you leave, you're on a main road, there'll be 10 people stopping you.
तो तुम क्या बोलते हो पुलिस वालों को तुम?
देखो, what we've kind of learnt is 6 a.m. drive club. You get up, you drive your car at 6:30. Before they can make it on the road, you're back inside. But it's quite a hassle driving. You can't drive these cars regularly without being harassed. So it's usually at night you can drive them, and you can drive them in the day, early in the morning, 6:30. So we have a small group of around 9 to 15 people. We plan our drives. I mean, usually in the winters, we start by around 6:30 and we are back in by 8:30. In terms of looks, would beat the current Mustang hands down. And third, I'd probably say, I mean, honestly, it's not as fast, obviously, but it gives you much more, it leaves a bigger smile on your face in comparison to what the new Mustang would do. See, the new Mustang is also fantastic, but again, like I'd say, the Mustangs, these muscle cars are not the best handlers even today.
Of course.
Correct. So it's not like you've got you can really race around with these cars. Sure, in straight lines, the new Mustang is fantastic. But if I have to choose on any day, I would choose the 68.
Imagine the rhythmic hum of a classic engine, the scent of aged leather, and the soft gleam of chrome under showroom lights. Welcome to the world of Angad Ahluwalia, a sanctuary where every classic car tells a story of elegance and era gone by. Angad, a custodian of automotive history, harbors a passion not just for the beauty of classic cars, but for the very soul embedded in their cores. With each vehicle he restores, Angad connects threads of the past to the present, honoring the legacy of craftsmanship and the roar of engines that have stood the test of time. This isn't just a hobby, it's a pursuit of preserving history one car at a time. His collection, an array of masterpieces, showcases his commitment to excellence and his deep reverence for the automotive legends. Join us as Angad shares his journey through the decades, exploring the intricate restorations that bring these classics back to life. His passion is palpable, his dedication unmatched. For Angad, each car isn't merely a machine, it's a living, breathing entity with stories etched into every bolt and panel. Dive deep into a conversation where every word is a tribute to the timeless allure of classic automobiles.
Thank you, Angad bhai. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Welcome home and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And so I think I've been following you a little bit on Instagram. I think we've been in conversation for the past few months. And the first question I'd like to ask you, let's say like from your collection of classic cars, you're an out and out classic car guy, and I would not say classic car, but an old school car guy.
Predominantly. Classics and modern classics, yeah.
Haan. So from your collection of classic cars, if there was one classic car that would talk to you, which one would it be? And what would it be saying?
Okay. Can I name two?
Please. All yours.
And they're going to be on extreme opposite ends of the. They're going to be on extreme opposite ends. First is the Ford Mustang 1968.
68. Okay.
68 Ford Mustang. It's a convertible.
हाँ.
It's a 5-liter 8-cylinder.
It's the same now. Jatti uncle wali red wali hai. I think.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Jatti had restored it for us. This is it's been a while.
Okay.
And the second is a 1968 again, Fiat 1100 Delight.
Oh.
So
okay.
that's the one. Actually, that was one of the first few classic cars I ever drove.
Huh.
And I mean, I still love it. I took it to the Statesman also this year.
Okay.
It participated in the Statesman, completed its run. And that's a car which I've actually spent a lot of time driving with my friends around in when I was in college, when it just basically night drives during COVID and stuff. So yeah, that is one car. And Mustang is our, how would I say, it's my father's prized possession, which he's passed on to me.
Okay.
So he had basically shown a lot of, he was very enthusiastic about it when it came to the restoration of the car and stuff.
Okay.
And I saw that car being restored in front of me when I was probably 15 years old, 14 years old. So that kind of built, that engraved the entire enthusiastic bit towards classic cars into me.
Okay.
And yeah, we enjoy the drives once in a while.
When did your dad pick up this the Mustang?
The Mustang, it's been a while. I mean, we had owned it previously as well.
Okay.
So classic cars have long story. Like, you know, classic cars have they change hands quite often. So we had owned it earlier. Then it. But if you talk about it in this leg, it's been with us for around 20 odd years.
Oh.
20 odd years. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been with us, and it was restored around 10 to 12 years back.
Okay.
So initially it was it was in a white color.
Acha.
And because of like various reasons that time it wasn't driven much.
Okay.
But then when we got down to drive, like making the car and redoing it with the help of Jatti uncle, we got the car up and running back in 2013 or 2012.
Interesting. So do you and the car have conversations frequently?
Yes, we do have conversations.
And what does those conversations sound like?
The conversations are secret. It stays between me and the car, and doesn't say one thing, says a lot of things. But you know what is very unfortunate is because of the NGT rules, we get to drive these cars very less. We get to drive these cars on rallies. We get to drive these cars. Let's say if there's some show happening, which happen usually in the winter season.
That reminds me, yaar. I'm sorry I'm cutting you in the middle, but a question आया मेरे mind में, and honestly मेरे को उसकी clarity है नहीं. That's why I'm asking you. Tell me more about the whole approval thing and the certificate thing you need to have for cars. I think it's more than 50 years at least.
Correct. So basically, any car which is above the age of 50, with the complete documentation, if you have the RC of the car, and it's on your name, you can get a vintage plate for it, which is a VN number. But still, the law is very ambiguous today as it stands. A lot of my friends and people who are in the scene have got vintage number plates. But still, how would I say it? The notification is not very clear. Ideally, you should be able to drive these cars if you have vintage numbers. But still, the police are not informed about it. On some instances, we've been stopped by the police, even though the car has completely valid papers. It'll have a vintage number plate, it'll have insurance, it's pollution, everything is in check. But we'll be stopped and we have been harassed about it. Very recently, in fact.
So pollution, मतलब क्या? Pollution norms के हिसाब से आज भी it's as per the modern cars only. Modern pollution norms.
Correct.
Are you serious?
Yeah. But honestly speaking, I mean, if you this was in October last year. We were coming back from a morning drive, and one of our uncles, he had basically got his car's documents completely ready with a vintage number. It was I think a Rajasthan vintage number. And we were stopped. And technically he can drive that car because that's the purpose of having a VN plate, correct?
Correct.
But then there was a lot of police trouble, a few calls had to be made here and there, and that's when the car was left. Ideally, this should not be happening. Ideally, you should be, if there is a notification which has been sent out, you should be allowed to drive these cars.
Correct.
So what has been understood till now of it is, even if you have a VN number, it can only be driven on, let's say, on a vintage car rally or a drive or a standing show to bring it over there.
तो मतलब अगर पुलिस रोकती है, तो if you tell them कि भाई you're going for a rally but actually you're not,
No, it's so what happens is usually see the rallies also today are very they're not happening very often. When they are happening, usually the policemen on that route are informed as well.
Okay.
So let's say we talk about the statesman happening.
Okay.
I drove the car a solid 25 kilometers from Chhatarpur
Okay.
till modern Barakhamba for judging.
Okay.
Drove through the entire Lutyens belt, but no one stopped us because that time the entire they were informed that you can go through this thing. On any other odd day, you leave, you're on a main road, there'll be 10 people stopping you.
तो तुम क्या बोलते हो पुलिस वालों को तुम?
देखो, what we've kind of learnt is 6 a.m. drive club. You get up, you drive your car at 6:30. Before they can make it on the road, you're back inside. But it's quite a hassle driving. You can't drive these cars regularly without being harassed. So it's usually at night you can drive them. And you can drive them in the day, early in the morning, 6:30. So we have a small group of around 9 to 15 people. We plan our drives. I mean, usually in the winters, we start by around 6:30 and we are back in by 8:30.
Okay.
But that's not the right way, I feel. I mean, if these cars ideally are not polluting and these cars are completely fit and these cars are valid documents, you should be allowed to drive these cars.
Okay. And in a very passionate and an emotional sense, because you have driven and you own the 68 Mustang, if I'm not wrong, and I'm sure you've already driven the new modern Mustang.
Correct.
So compare the two. I mean, what is the feeling when you drive a new one and the one which you have?
I think it can't just be limited to a Mustang here, but in general also, if you're comparing a Mustang, the new Mustang to the old Mustang, I feel, see, everything is not about that acceleration which comes in. There is a relationship you build with the car. You kind of feel that extra sort of grunt, that raw power, because that car, you kind of understand how that car is going to respond. Nowadays, what has happened is with the new Mustang, it's a very nice car. Firstly, the new Mustang is not convertible. Very elementary reason to toss into it. Secondly, I feel there is no comparison in like the Mustang of that era in terms of looks would beat the current Mustang hands down. And third, I'd probably say, I mean, honestly, it's not as fast, obviously, but it gives you much more, it leaves a bigger smile on your face in comparison to what the new Mustang would do. See, the new Mustang is also fantastic, but again, like I'd say, the Mustangs, these muscle cars are not the best handlers even today.
Of course.
Correct. So it's not like you've got some, you can really race around with these cars. Sure, in straight lines, the new Mustang is fantastic. But if I have to choose on any day, I'd choose the 68.
Interesting. So on that note, I'd like to have your view on the car culture today. I mean, what do you think people are missing out on in today's car culture?
We can talk about it from a classic car perspective or in general?
Both. In general first and then from the classic car perspective.
In general, I feel car culture, like we had earlier also spoken about, car culture has kind of increased in India also. People are getting enthusiastic about cars, but it's also becoming very run of the mill. Like, when we talk about it, people, when it comes to even, let's talk about mod culture. Mod culture, instead of people really understanding what they're doing to their cars, why are they doing it? Performance mods are always welcome, but does that specific car need that mod or does it not need it? Are you requiring it or no? Then graphic mods, I don't understand personally what people do today with their cars. The kind of jazz which is happening on. Let's just talk about Thars. We can talk about Thars. I own a Thar.
Yeah.
Sadly, so mine is completely stock. But we know that the moment a person is going to buy a Thar, he's going to go and he's going to put a Wrangler grill on it. He's going to change the bumpers of that car. It's like a herd culture, what I'd call. Individuality is being lost in the entire process of what we see today. And yeah, I mean, people don't really want to educate themselves about cars. They just look at a car at how it is on the face value and they'll see what other people are doing. So without really reading, studying about it or understanding, they just want to do it. And what is happening is people have become so oriented towards speed and a fast car that they don't really, people have to start respecting the car more, I think. People have to understand every car has different limits. You have to push that, what limit can what car be pushed to and how the car has to be treated as well. It's more, from people, it's more about an eye candy today than, really building that relation with the car.
Also, do you think people are looking at all cars from all manufacturers with only one perspective of, let's say, horsepower these days, largely speaking?
Yes, I mean, sort of. I'd
Okay.
say probably
Okay.
they're looking. By horsepower, you mean basically you're trying to say that how fast the car is going in simple
Correct.
words, correct?
Simple words.
So that is what people are looking at. People don't understand that a car is an overall package, correct? So that's why today, if you compare, let's compare these the entry level sedans.
Yeah.
Let's compare a Virtus with a Honda City with a Verna. These are the three.
Yeah.
People today are going gaga over the new Verna for some reason because it has probably 10 or 15 more horsepower than the Virtus and
Okay.
it's ahead of the Honda City. People don't realize that, I mean, they don't understand or realize that a car has to be a complete package coming with a good suspension, it should handle well. Safety is being ignored completely. People really don't care about how safe a car is today. I feel NCAP ratings aren't even looked at today. Half the cars are getting 1 star, 2 star, and they're selling like hotcakes.
Dude, honestly, I have my doubts even on NCAP India. I don't know what they're doing.
Correct. That's true. That's another that can be discussed for another 2 hours.
We can talk about that. It's okay. I mean, I have nothing to lose.
Correct. But let's say when we talk about, I mean, again, no hate to a personal, like towards any car. But I personally feel Korean cars are not, as of today in India, the safest cars to be in, to drive. I've personally owned a Korean car. I owned the first gen Creta.
Yeah.
And I feel they're not safe enough. And right now, what people are really running after is they want fancy interiors in cars. They want like a decent mileage, and that car should look nice. Beyond that, they're not really going into, they're not looking for a good build quality, how the ride quality is, what the suspension of the car is, or matter of fact, they don't look at all that. It's basically that's why today Korean manufacturers, Kia and Hyundai, they're selling like hotcakes.
Yeah.
And that's why probably German manufacturers like Skoda and Volkswagen had to bring the Slavia and the Virtus in mass production. And that's why their quality has also declined, right? So because they have to pack in so many features at such a low cost, that is what I'd say has led to the decline in quality. I mean, if you compare automobiles 10 years down, like from 2013, 2010 to now, there's a massive difference in quality. Be it any brand. We can compare a 2012-13 Tucson or a Santa Fe, what we call, to today what is being sold, there has to be a difference. Similarly, you go to a Volkswagen showroom 10 years back and now, and that's probably the trend also. But you really can't help it.
Okay. So once again, out and out, you seem to be a car guy, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're pretty much born in a car family full of enthusiasts, including your dad.
My father primarily. Okay. So it's actually not not an enthusiast family.
Okay.
But yeah, my father is a big car enthusiast.
Okay.
So he's been into vintage and classic cars for over 25 years now.
Okay.
Around 25 years.
So talk to me a little bit more about that. How vintage cars happened? How much ever you know about when vintage cars started coming into your household?
Into my household. Before I was in the household, there were vintage cars in the household. My father basically his love towards old cars came in back when in probably the late 80s or early 80s. He was basically he was in fact in school. I don't know if this should be said out loud, but that time licenses and all were not much of an issue.
Of course.
Correct. So that time the option he wanted to buy a car for himself. And he went to my grandfather that I want a car. So my grandfather wasn't ready to shell out a lot of money. So I think from a Diplomat, that time he had bought himself a 68 Beetle. And that's where his love for Beetles also was born. So over all these years, he's owned around, I think, 35 or 40 Beetles. And we currently also have a Beetle.
35, 40 Beetles?
Correct.
Your
Beetles,
dad?
Yeah. At different times, different colors, different years.
You still have them?
We have one Beetle. We've kept one Beetle and we're restoring that currently. So
and which year is this?
That's a 68.
Okay.
So
fundamentally it would be the original Beetle design, right?
Correct.
From where I think it went into two different directions, which we know as the new Beetle and the 911 Porsche.
Correct. So Beetles also, I mean, back in the day for different markets, different Beetles were made. So we had for the European markets, for the American markets, there were left-hand drive Beetles which were also being sold in Mexico. And then we had European market Beetles. Beetle was very interesting because it had a very vast variety you could choose from.
Yeah.
You used to get 1500cc Beetles. There were 1600cc's. There were 1200cc's.
Yeah.
So I mean, over the years we've owned quite a few of them, and a lot of my childhood has been. I've been taken to school before NGT rules came in and stuff, much before, 20 years before that. I was taken to school in vintage cars, bought home, whenever my father was picking me up or dropping me from school, it was mostly in an old car. He drove an old car, a vintage car / a classic car, till whichever chance he got in the winters, he'd drive an old car. So most of our Sunday lunches, it's always been that. And we've also been very fond of modern classics. Like we have a 2001 SLK with us as of today. So that's like a late night ice cream car.
Dude, get an NSX, man, please. 91 NSX.
There are too many cars to
please buy one.
I need to first work a little more and get my banks fit for that. But then till 2018 we also had kept an SL 500. So then I'm not sure if
the SL 500 was which year again?
2003.
Interesting.
2003. So that was a very nice car. And in fact, for me, it was a delight because I was I think 20, early 20s I was in, and I got to drive a car of that caliber at a very early stage. So that was a good time we had with that car. Sold it off back in 2017 or 2018. Either of the 2 years we sold it. Then not a lot of people know that this car made it to India, but the Fiat 500.
But this was in like about 10 years back, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Correct. So yeah, the Fiat 500 also we had.
You had?
Yeah, we had.
Yeah, why don't you have? I mean,
because of the NGT rules. If we were allowed to keep these cars, we would have kept these cars. The Fiat 500 was a nice drive too.
Dude, keep it for autocross, man. That's like a cheat code for autocross, I think.
You know, that was one of the punchiest diesel engines you can drive.
It was a diesel? Yeah. Oh. India they didn't get the...
As far as it was only a diesel, yeah. So even the Abarth version was a diesel, correct. But again, a Fiat diesel engine you can't really go wrong with.
Correct.
That was a baller car.
I think Fiat in terms of engines, you can't really go wrong with Fiat.
Bulletproof. In fact, yesterday only we were talking, we said that Fiat's left the country. The engines are never going to leave this country.
Yes.
They can never leave. And I mean, just comparing, apples to oranges, but I'm very fond of classic Fiats as well. So I've got, currently, I've got 4 Fiats. I've got 2 1100 Delights, and I've got 3 1100 Delights now, and I've got 1 Millicento, which is the Italian. And these cars, I feel, are bulletproof cars. I mean, you leave them alone for a year, you start them, you should have a charged battery, you have water, you have fuel, the car's going to start.
And I think that's the case with all of these classic cars.
No.
I'm not sure about modern classics, but I'm talking about the old classics.
It depends. I personally feel that there's a divide. I'd say, again, it could be a personal bias, but I feel that American cars, at least up till the 70s, were very reliable. So the engines, as we speak. European cars, a little more complex. So the European car, after 4 years, 3 years in isolation, may not start. But an American car, in fact, my father was telling me about this only. This was back in like 2001 or 2002. He had gone to see, if I'm correct, he had gone to see a Studebaker, or he had gone to see, I think it was a Studebaker he had gone to see. I'll check once. But he had gone somewhere in Madhya Pradesh. It was a barn find. He opened the shutter, like it was parked in the garage. The shutter was opened. There was a battery, pani, and there was a jerry can with fuel in it. And that car started like this. The brakes needed work. शाम तक brake पे काम किया. There was a mechanic on hand, and he stayed the night. The next day he drove that car back to Delhi.
From MP?
Yes, from MP.
And that car was standing in the barn for how long?
For at least 7 to 8 years.
Damn.
So that's why our affinity towards American cars has been there for a long, long time.
So I don't know if you'll be able to tell me this, but I really want to understand, what was it in layman terms about these, I would call them marvels of engineering, considering it started after 7 years. What is it about these cars as compared to the modern day cars that made them so reliable back in the day?
See, again, like I personally feel engine for engine, if we are saying, I think obviously that time production, again, I can only answer in a very
Yeah.
layman's
Yeah.
language because I am not very well versed with it.
Yeah.
But probably because of obviously that time cars were not just commodities, cars were built, there were much lesser cars built. Obviously, quality of everything going into that engine block altogether was heaps ahead of what is today, even though technology is advanced today. But today it's more of like a mass production when it comes to it. Secondly, I also am of the belief that the more electronics put into a car, the more chips you put into a car, things become more complex obviously today. So in today's time, you leave a car for 7 years, I'm pretty sure even if the engine is ready to start, there are going to be 100 other issues in that car.
Yeah.
Correct. So, I mean, that is why I feel that probably these cars are more hardy that way. And it's not only about the engine, like even if you see the bodies of these, have you had an experience with an old car yet?
Not of my own, but I can say, I mean, on and off, I keep going to Calcutta. Pili taxi.
Correct.
So ambassador की ही अगर हम लोग बात कर ले, even if it's ambassador,
You shut the door of that car, it's like a vault.
dude, yeah.
Correct.
Totally.
I mean, and I don't, not, why even go that? I mean, why even go to the 60s or 70s? A W123 Mercedes.
Yeah.
Those doors are like vaults, right?
Or for that matter, I've personally experienced the first Skoda Superb, which was there.
Yeah.
That was a vault again, that damn door, or probably the first Skoda Octavia that came in.
The first Skoda Superb, if I'm correct, also came with a V6, right?
V6, yes.
Yeah,
it was a 2.7 or something, V6.
Was it? Okay, I thought it was a 3.2 for some reason.
No, wo 2.2, it was in 2.6 or
Very interesting
2.7.
car again.
Very interesting and a very powerful car.
I was after one of those also, but I could never get my hands on that. Very interesting car again.
Huh.
Yeah, so basically that's what I feel the entire thing is, that obviously mass production has led to a decline in quality. And yeah, at the same time, I mean, electricals and all being added to not only the mechanical bits of a car, but in general, what is going on in a car has also kind of, reduced quality and reliability.
Okay.
So yeah.
So, in connection to what you just said, tell me one thing. I mean, you just mentioned off camera that, I mean, you have your main business in not even this city very much, and you have it in Goa primarily.
Correct.
And here, the only thing you're doing is cars.
Correct.
You have a workshop.
More like at a recreational level, we can say.
At a recreational level. But considering you're spending so much time on cars, what is your why? I mean, I don't know how to ask it in a better fashion, but what is your why when you're spending so much time in these restoring these old school, old cars, vintage cars, classic cars?
Correct.
Why do you do it?
I mean, it's just, I think it's pure passion and love when it comes to these things. Again, like you said, it's very tough for you to ask. It's very tough for the person to explain as well.
I'm sure.
I mean, it sounds weird, but sometimes you're standing in, especially in this damp weather, the weather's very damp, it's humid, and you're standing in the workshop. People are working on the cars, and you don't even realize that you're drenched in sweat. You're just enjoying the entire thing altogether. And honestly, because these cars every day they're like what I'd call London weather. They can have a problem anytime, and you have dealing with those minor issues. There is nothing major. Anything can happen. A fuel in गाड़ियों का, let's say, fuel pump बोल जाता है, कुछ बोल जाता है, distributor बोल जाता है. Then sometimes, I mean, it can just be anything. The brakes of the, like, coming back to, let's say, a Fiat or something. My Fiat's brakes have given up on me while I've been on the road also. But these minor tingles add to the fun. So, and especially, modern cars today are so perfect, in simple words. There's no real challenge when it comes to either handling a modern car, driving a modern car, or even, I mean, it's easier maintaining those cars. These cars, firstly, restoring one is a matter of, let's say, a lot of effort. And in that process of restoration, because all your tastes come in over there, how you want that car to be restored. And here, it's very polar opposite to mod culture, modification culture. Here, you're trying to get the car back to its shape, how it was 50, 40, 30 years back. There's a lot of reading involved in it, how this car was. Let's say if you find, let's say we talk about Chevy Bel Air.
Yeah, Bel Air.
Now, that was made for the European markets also.
Yeah.
America mein to obviously it was sold. Now you're going to see, was it a European market spec? Was it an American market spec? What went in that gen? What was there? some parts you won't find in India for sure. Then you have to order those parts. You can find those parts on eBay. You do a little bit of searching here and there. You find it. Sometimes those parts are also not in the best condition. Then you get them. Let's say they have to be re-chromed and stuff. So it's each small step is tedious. Could take a year to restore a car. Could take maybe more. But when that product is in front of you, I should not call it a product. I think I should be taking that word back. But when that baby is ready in front of you, then you feel proud about that creation which is standing. And then also because you've put in your heart and sweat into it, and then you start driving her, obviously, let's say in the mornings and stuff. It's just that relation you make with that car, and it's very tough to part with these cars then. Very, very tough.
Interesting. Walk me through, I really want you to go back to that day wherein you, for the first time in your life, I mean, practically it's by birth for you, but when you genuinely and truly understood the might of those cars, and then you got to drive that one car, and then what did you feel? Just walk me through that.
Okay, by might, you must be referring to like the significance of that car?
Might, when I say might, I just mean everything about it. You know, there's this certain, as Jeremy Clarkson says, imperiousness when you get,
correct,
when you drive these kind of cars. Always talking about Range Rovers.
So for me, it was very different, because when I was probably, when I came to realize that cars and all, so that time I remember very clearly, we used to have a 118 NE.
Okay.
Okay, 118 NE. There used to be 118 NE, which used to be the car which was being driven by everyone. And at that time, my father had, this was 2001 or 2, had a Dodge Kingsway.
Oh.
So when you saw both those cars parked in front of you, one is, and honestly that time NEs weren't very rare. NEs were still a thing.
I think NEs were being sold here, yeah.
Correct. So the 118 NEs were quite a thing. I remember we had a white 118 NE, and then when I used to sit in the Kingsway, when my father used to take me out, I said, this is a different thing altogether. And then it became more prominent for me, because let's say when I was in KG or the first grade, my friends coming in at home, and they were going gaga over these cars. They'd see the Kingsway standing. Then after that, we got a Biscayne.
Okay.
And that Biscayne was, I mean, such a nice car to drive. My father enjoyed it so much that car was basically, it was his day drive. Let me put it that way. It was his day drive. So wherever we were going, we were in it. And that's when I understood, yes, that these cars are, honestly, these are lovely. And over the time, obviously, because of, let's say, because he got caught up with work and stuff. And then the cars reduced also in, let's say, after I was around 8-9 years old. And also then we got some not very interesting cars, like we got the Daewoo Martis had come in and stuff. Then that's when it hit me. I'm like, no, listen, these cars, those are the cars, these are not the cars.
So just one question quickly in the middle. The Dodge and the Biscayne, are these by any chance these one of those 6 to 8 cylinder machines?
Yeah.
Okay, the big ones. Okay.
So basically, I mean, when we talk American, it has to be minimum 6 cylinder machine, correct?
Dodge has to be, correct.
Correct. So I mean, and obviously they used to come in different configurations as well. But this was the Dodge was a 6 cylinder.
Okay.
Dodge was a 6 cylinder. Then we again owned a Dodge Kingsway back in 2014, which took part in the Statesman Rally.
Okay.
And my father had made it a point that he wants to enter that car on my name.
Oh.
And I couldn't drive. I didn't have a license that time. I was not 18. So I'd gone, I picked up that award and stuff. And that's when the kick came in that, listen, I mean, get your ass up. Now you're turning 18, get your license, you enjoy these cars. In fact, a lot of my friends tell me today, even today, the amount which the Mustang should be driven, honestly, it's not being driven. So a few of my friends give me the kicks that, I mean, you got such a beautiful car parked here. And it's not only friends who are not into cars, even my classic car friends, they tell me that, I mean, you're just stupid, you're not waking up all those mornings to get up and drive this car. And I think I should start doing that now.